Piero della Francesca, a name that sounds like a whisper from the heart of the Italian Renaissance, but whose paintings speak with the quiet authority of geometry. He painted saints and sovereigns, altarpieces, and fresco cycles. Yet what lingers is not drama, but a profound stillness. Figures posed like axioms, light falling with mathematical precision, landscapes that seem measured by a ruler as much as by the eye. From the monumental resurrection with its solitary, triumphant Christ to the puzzling flagellation that reads like a riddle in stone and air. From the tender baptism in a classical landscape to the crystalline profiles of Federico and Battista, Piero fused humanism and perspective into a new visual logic. His work is part devotional image, part scientific experiment, and forever a lesson in how art can be both serene and radical. If you love art that makes you pause, think, and see differently, stay with us. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating more educational videos like this one. Piero was born in the small Tuscan town of San Sepolcro, sometime around 1415, and he lived through one of the most transformative centuries in Western art. His biography remains partial, a mosaic of contracts, payments, and archival traces. He trained and worked across central Italy, Florence, Borgo San Sepolcro, and courts such as Urbino, where the intellectual atmosphere of humanism met the practical demands of patrons. He was not a flamboyant courtier, but a measured craftsman, a painter who read geometry and translated it into paint. That combination, the regional humility of San Sepolcro and the cosmopolitan currents of Renaissance Italy, explains the restrained dignity of his portraits and the classical clarity of his sacred scenes. What sets Piero apart is technique. He thought like a mathematician. His tempera surfaces are built with layers that give a cool, luminous depth. Perspective for him was not decoration but structure. Architectural frameworks, vanishing points, and orthogonals organize space and human bodies alike. Light behaves predictably in his world, soft, almost sculptural, so that faces feel carved more than painted. When he painted the Montefeltro altarpiece, he placed figures with an almost architectural spacing. When he painted the Flagellation, he used perspective lines to lock the viewer into a specific vantage. Piero even wrote treatises on perspective. He aimed to teach artists how to see with instruments as much as with feeling. The result is an art that feels inevitable, as if each composition were the logical solution to a visual problem. The Flagellation of Christ in Urbino is perhaps Piero's most enigmatic masterpiece. At first glance, the painting is split into two zones. In the foreground, a cold, classical chamber where three figures stand in conversation. Behind them, through a windowed opening, Christ is being scourged on a dramatically receding stage. The geometry is ruthless. Every plane, column, and tile contributes to the feeling that we are watching a carefully constructed argument. Scholars have argued about the identity of the figures and the chronology of events, and whether the work is political allegory, devotional meditation, or both. That mystery is the point. Piero's architecture of space becomes an architecture of meaning. The painting doesn't announce its secrets. It invites careful looking. The baptism of Christ is a quieter kind of marvel. Here Piero places the scene in a wide, measured landscape, calm water, a classical temple implied at the horizon, and a ring of angels lined like a chorus. Christ stands at the center, still and luminous, while John the Baptist performs the rite with understated solemnity. Notice the restrained palette and the way light falls evenly across flesh and drapery, making each form seem weighty and rational. The flock of angels and the single dove above the scene are delicate punctuation marks, and the whole composition reads like a fresco translated into tempera, a study in balance between human ritual and cosmic order. Then there is the resurrection, painted on a wall in San Sepolcro, and later moved into collective consciousness as Piero's defining image. Christ strides forward, floating above a luminous hill. Below him, guards sleep like fallen statues. The composition is monumental, yet intimate. Everything is symmetrical, the tomb carved into the ground like a geometric void. Look for a tiny, personal flourish. One of the sleeping guards is believed to bear Piero's own face, a reminder that artists sometimes hide themselves in the work as witness or confessor. The resurrection is not just religious theater. It is an exercise in calm. in the assurance that form and light can carry the weight of transcendence. Piero's portraits are a masterclass in character and restraint. The paired portraits of Federico da Montefeltro and Battista Sforza are famous for their severe profiles, rendered against dark backgrounds and shown in idealized, nonchalant repose. Federico's missing right eye from a tournament wound is painted matter-of-factly. The face becomes a study in honor, duty, and controlled emotion. On the reverse panels, Piero painted triumphal processions, small, jewel-like narratives that extend the story of the sitter's public life. These works show Piero as court painter and chronicler, able to combine psychological observation with a love of clean, harmonious design. Madonna images in Piero's oeuvre move between the monumental and the intimate. The Madonna del Parto is an arresting fresco of the pregnant Virgin, shown frontally inside a niche and framed like an oracle of fertility, an unusually human, almost sculptural depiction of maternity. Meanwhile, the Montefeltro altarpiece, sometimes called the Brera Madonna or Palla di Brera, presents a Sacra Conversazione, the Virgin and Child between saints and patrons, composed with the same strict geometry as his secular works. Look closely and you will spot delicate details, an egg, a coral, precisely painted textile, each surface rendered with patience and a careful hand. Piero's fresco cycle in the Church of San Francesco at Arezzo contains some of his most cinematic storytelling. Scenes from the Legend of the True Cross, including Constantine's dream, show armies, emperors, and miraculous events staged with classical calm. His figures wear armor and gestures borrowed from antiquity, but the compositions are inventions of Renaissance perspective. In Constantine's dream, a sleeping emperor is framed like a stage prop, with attendants and heraldry arranged to emphasize the narrative pivot. These cycle paintings reveal Piero's ambition to bring history, legend, and geometric order into a single, coherent visual language. Piero loved puzzles. He wrote about perspective in treatises that circulated among artists and mathematicians, and he was fascinated by the interplay of optics and geometry. He is one of the few painters of his time to step into the twin worlds of treatise writing and large-scale decoration. Curious viewers have found tiny autobiographical traces in his work: a folded hand, a peculiar nose in a guard's face, a small, solemn profile tucked into a crowd. These are not showy signatures, but thoughtful gestures, a record of presence, a wink from an artist who measured both bodies and ideas. Piero's quiet revolution rippled forward in art history. His disciplined use of perspective influenced generations of Italian painters. Centuries later, modern artists and critics rediscovered his work for its cool, almost metaphysical stillness. Painters like Cézanne and later modernists admired the way Piero reduced forms to planar, structural relationships. In the 20th century, scholars recognized him not simply as a regional master, but as a figure whose work bridges medieval iconography and modern spatial thought. Today, his frescoes and panels remain studied for their technical rigor and their philosophical restraint, paintings you return to again and again because they keep giving new angles. Piero della Francesca refuses to be loud. His art invites a different kind of viewing: patient, attentive, curious. He teaches us that power in painting can come from measured silence, from the precise placement of a foot or a column, from light that reveals more by what it hides. Whether it's the quiet miracle of the baptism, the puzzling order of the flagellation, the monumental calm of the resurrection, or the exacting profiles of the Montefeltro portraits, Piero's paintings are agreements between sight and reason. They ask us not only to feel, but to see, to measure, to imagine, to return. If you leave this video with one impulse, let it be this: next time you stand before a painting, give it time. The patient eye may find a whole world.